having us be a part of your meeting today. And I hope you guys have some really big takeaways. And thanks again for having me.
Awesome. Well, then I guess that leaves it to me to go ahead and get started. I did get, oh, I see Zach came in at the bottom. Zach, do you want to say anything before I start? No, he's like, no. Happy New Year. I did get a little bit of a list from Allie earlier today about some stuff that she really wanted covered in this class. Luckily for me, all of it is stuff that I already covered in this class. But if you've never taken a class from me, I am super laid back. I do have the chat box open on my alternate screen here, but I'm happy to have people like just cut in and say, hey, back up, do that again. So please, definitely, if you have questions, throw them up in the chat box or unmute yourself and chime in, because this is really about your time and making sure that you get what you need out of this class to be able to productively and efficiently do your paperwork within Skyslope Forms. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in here. I'm going to share my screen. Let's make sure I share the correct one. Okay, hopefully everybody is looking at my Skyslope Forms now. Is that what you see, Brandy? Thumbs up? Okay, so Skyslope Forms, one of the things, I've been a real estate instructor for a really long time, like over 20 years now. And when Zip Forms came out, it had its problems, but then as it got better, I was like, oh, this is like the end all be all, like this is going to make agents' lives so much easier to do business. And then when Skyslope Forms came out, I was like, oh, one more thing that they have to learn or whatnot. But really, I think Skyslope really broke the process of the real estate transaction down into some really great fundamentals that are kind of independent of each other. One of the things I love about this system is because there are so many aspects to it, you've got your transaction manager for your brokerage, you've got the digital signing part, you've got Breeze, and you've got forms. But instead of mushing it all into one like little place where it's like when I'm in here, I've got to dig around to find what I want. They broke it out into little segments to make it like bite-sized and easy to use. So we're going to talk about a couple things today, mainly creating your files, how to create them, how to best fill them out and get them signed and things like that. We're going to talk about creating templates. I'm a huge believer in templates because I think that they make your life more efficient and easier for you. We're going to talk about how to duplicate things within the system so that you don't have to recreate the wheel every single time, and how to add to files once you have them. Now, it seems kind of counterintuitive to start this class with templates, but that's where we're going to start it. But before I start there, I always like to start this class. If you have not done it in a while, it sounds like you guys are kind of just moving back to this platform, but if you have not done it in a while and you use Skyslope Forms, please make sure you go to the upper right-hand corner, go to your user profile, and make sure that all of your data is accurate. So there's going to be a couple sections here. So personal information, that's your name, your email address. You will notice that your email address is grayed out and you cannot change it. That's because that is your official sign-in address. So if you do need to change that email address at any time, you physically need to contact Skyslope and they will update that for you. And that's a security feature from preventing anybody else from hacking into your account and changing the email address on file. Down below, add all of the regions that you serve. So currently I have in here United States, Oregon. If you are dual license and also work in Washington, you can come in here and also add Washington on here as well. And then down below, your brokerage information. Now, the reason that this is so important is because this is what auto-populates onto your forms every time you create a transaction. So the more data that you have in here, the more data imports into your forms automatically. So the less data entry you have to do on that side of things. Any questions so far? Doesn't look like it. There is a Teams tab here. You can add people to your team. So if somebody's covering your business while you're on vacation or out of the office, you can add them so that they can access your files as opposed to going, hey, Amy, here's my username and password since you're covering my business, right? I could just add Amy in here as a person who is sharing my files for that time. Libraries, this one's pretty self-explanatory. This is going to be all the libraries that you're connected to. By default, you get Oregon Realty forms. That will be in there automatically. If you are still subscribed to ORIF, your ORIF forms will be in here. There will be a verification process for ORIF forms and your RMLS. If you belong to additional MLSs, you Skyslope is connected to several of them. So for example, if you are part of Willamette Valley MLS because you have some stuff in Salem, you can add Willamette Valley MLS in here. You will have to do a verification process where Willamette Valley basically log in, and Willamette Valley will be like, yep, Dawn's a member of this. They're already also a part of Northwest MLS up in Washington. So if you're dual licensed and you need Northwest MLS forms, you can also subscribe to Northwest MLS. That way you have all of your MLS forms in one place if you need them. And then the preferences, there's really only one thing under here for you. It's the option. This is something that they put into place earlier this year per a lot of requests from people. They're like, I want the option to continue using DocuSign if I want to use DocuSign. So now you can choose what your default electronic signature platform will be, whether it'll be DigiSign or DocuSign. There's no right or wrong. It's about what's most efficient for you and what works best for you. However, DigiSign is built into the platform. And because you guys use Skyslope transactions, you already have full access to that anyway. So for those of you still using DocuSign, if anybody is, if you'd like to save, $300 a year, that might be something that you can play with, get familiar with before your DocuSign contract comes up for renewal. And of course, any changes that you make on any of these tabs, please remember to click the big blue save button at the bottom of the page. All right, so we're going to jump right in. I'm going to start with templates because I think that they've built Skyslope Forms to be so user-friendly that I could actually put templates in a beginning class. Like I didn't have to have a whole secondary class of, and there's all this too. You can have as many templates as you want. There is no right or wrong way to do templates. It's all about what makes sense to you. I have a lot of clients that do what I like to call the kitchen sink template, and they put every single buyer's form in a buyer's template. And then I have people who are a little bit more kind of compartmentalized and type A personality, and they're like, I'm only putting in what I need to get the offer out the door. I can add additional paperwork as I go. So again, there's no right or wrong way to do it. Just keep in mind, once you build that template, every time you use it, all the paperwork you put in it, whether it's 4 forms or 400 forms, is going to be a part of that transaction file. You can come back and modify templates at any time after you've created them as well. So we're just going to start right here, create a template. Oddly enough, they created a template for you to walk through to create your template. So I'm just going to say we're going to create a buyer's template. Click next, and then it's going to ask you what you want to name this template. And I'm going to call this my Buyers 2025 template. And I'm going to hit continue. And then I'm going to come down and it's going to give me all of the forms that I have access to. So the Oregon forms, the ORIF forms, the RMLS forms are all going to be in there. If you're only using a certain set of forms, you can come in right at the top here where it says all libraries, and you can say, I only want to see ORIF forms, or I only want to see Oregon forms. And that will cut your list down quite a bit so that you're not having to fill through Oregon forms if you only use ORIF or vice versa. You can also double that up. You could say, I only want to see ORIF forms and RMLS forms, and then it will just show those two. And anytime you can click those closed and be done with that. As we add our forms, again, no right or wrong. It's all like how you do your business, what makes sense to you. You can come in here, you can search for forms specifically. So I can say, hey, I want to search for the buyer's advisory form. Come down, go through those forms. Let's see here, buyer's representation agreements. And then I'm just going to come to the right-hand side, click add. If you're unsure of what if you're like, I'm not sure if that's the right form or not, you can click on the form name and it will open up a preview here. so that you can look at the form and go, yep, that's the right form. That's the one I'm looking for. And I can click add to that. I'm going to take that out there. So then I'm going to come down. I'm just going to pick out all of the forms that I know that I'm going to need to get this out. I'm a kind of a type A personality. Brandy and Chris will tell you I like everything kind of neatly in its box. So I'm just going to do the disclosed limited agency, the organ disclosure, and then the residential sales agreement. So now I've got my 4 forms that I want in here. Down below in the lower right-hand side, you'll see it tells me I've got 4 forms. I can click view to see which forms I've already put in there. So if I need to add any, I can quickly do that. But if I'm ready to go, I can hit continue. And now it's going to show me all of my forms here. On this left-hand side, you're going to see your 4 forms that you have. If you hover to the left-hand side where the hamburger stack is, you can drag and drop those into the order that you want them to be in. So if you want them to read the residential sales agreement before they read the disclosures or vice versa, you can put those in whatever order you want for that template. Now, when we're talking about templates, keep in mind, every time you open a transaction, all of your personal data and all of brokerage data will auto import for you. So you don't need to fill out any of that in your template. For the most part, I tell people don't fill out a whole lot in this template because it's going to be used for multiple transactions with multiple degrees of people and parties and whatnot. However, if there are certain things that you put in, for instance, a buyer's residential sales agreement, you know, if you always check that box, buyer exclusivity, and you're like 99.9% of the time, I'm going to check that box, then feel free to check that box on the template because you can always uncheck it in the individual transaction if you need to. If you have some default information that you like to put in for like the inspection data, like a lot of people have their default like inspection will include da 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 da. Feel free to put that in there because again, even though this is your template, you can tweak it per individual transaction. We did get a question, can we upload a doc to a template? Absolutely, you can upload a document to a template. You can do it from the template. Oh, let me go back into our template here. You can do it from this page down here. At the lower left-hand corner, it'll say add additional forms or upload documents. Now, keep in mind, if you upload a document from your computer, it is going to upload as a flat PDF document, which means that when you get to DigiSign or DocuSign, you'll have to manually tag those documents with all the data you need in them. So party names, things like that. So it will not be form fillable like the ORIF or organ forms. Hope that answered your question. So again, when you're on these, just fill out, if there's stuff that you put on it like 99% of the time, then go ahead and pre-fill that information out. That's okay. But for the most part, these are going to be left blank because you're going to use them multiple times for multiple people and that data is going to change. All I'm going to do now is click save in the lower right-hand corner. And now you can see, I already had a couple templates in here, but now you can see my buyers 2025, and apparently I cannot spell template today. So let me go here. If you need to change the name, we can go save. You can add those there. Now, one quick tip that you can do is there are 3 dots here. This is called the hamburger menu. It literally opens up the additional menu. So here you can see that in the additional menu for each one, I can edit, I can add forms, I can remove forms, I can change the template details like I just did. I can duplicate it or I can delete it. So if I have a template that I'm no longer using, I can just hit delete. But maybe I want to create a template. Maybe I work with Chris all the time and Chris works with, you know, he's a builder. So I do a lot of transactions with him and I'm like, I don't want to have to put in Chris's information every single time I'm in there. I can duplicate my buyer's template, just rename it. Click save. And it's going to open up my new template here. And then I can add any additional forms that I need for working with Chris, but I can also come in here and specifically add all Chris's detail information, his email, all of that stuff, so that it's always in the form every single time I use it. I can also duplicate it into other templates. So I can hit duplicate. Maybe I want this to be my buyer's condo template. Not that it took a whole long time to create that template, but if I want a little shortcut, and maybe if I put a bunch of forms in there, I could come in here, and then all I have to do to change this out to a condo one is take this residential sales agreement, hit the little minus button next to it, delete it. Then I can go to add forms. I'm going to type in condo at the top. It's going to give me my condo form here, and I can, I think I want to add the RMLS one too. And all I have to do is click add my condo supplemental and my condo real estate form. And now I have a condo template. Okay, it looks like we got another question. I'm noticing my templates do not have my contact info or brokerage info there. Is there an additional step to make sure it's it will auto populate automatically when you create a new transaction file for an actual client. That's when all of that data will auto populate into that. All right, any other questions about templates before we move on? Perfect. Okay, so we're going to jump back over to files here. So this is your main dashboard in Skyslope Forms. It is going to show you all of your current active files. You'll notice that there's two options here, all files and archive files. You cannot delete any of your files out of Skyslope Forms. That is a safety feature to keep you in compliance with the 7-year rule, but it also keeps Skyslope in compliance with making sure that they keep data for the required amount of time that they're required to keep data for as well. There is no file limit, so don't worry about running out of space or anything like that. All of your active files will be, or open files and active files will be on here. You do have an option up here. You can view it as a list if you prefer. If you're kind of more kind of a list person, you'd rather view it that way, you can. Or if you're a visual person, you can view it as a grid. You can also filter and say, I only want to see buyers or I only want to see sellers. All of my stuff is buyers, so I just leave it as all. If you have a file that closes, like maybe, for instance, Northeast Russell, my buyers decided like maybe they lost out to somebody else, or my buyers decided to withdraw from that offer. If I need this not to be in my active file anymore, I can come to the 3 dots, the menu, and I can just hit archive, and it's going to automatically move it over to my archives. You can access your archives at any time just by clicking on the archive button. If, for instance, you have a client, like a buyer client, they put an offer on a house, they don't get, they don't get the offer accepted, but maybe in a couple weeks, the listing agent comes back and says, hey, are your clients still interested? You don't have to go start a whole new file. You can come back to the archive file. I can come back to this Russell Street and I can hit the buttons and I can say, restore this to my active files. So instead of starting all over, I can just restore it back to my active files. Then I can go in and just update like anything I need to, like dates, times, prices, things like that. Any questions so far? Looking good. Okay. So we're going to start. We're just going to hit the create button right here. It's a pretty simple process. If you haven't walked through it before, this is going to be pretty simple. I'm going to do this part pretty quick because I think most of you have probably already done this, but it's just going to walk you through a template. Who are you representing? Buyer, seller, tenant, landlord. I'm representing the buyer. Then I'm just going to add my buyer's information in here. We'll use my test email. That way I don't spam Brandy. If I have additional contacts, I can come in here and I can add in additional people. And you're just going to keep adding additional people. Now, please do keep in mind that these forms, even though they're updated year to year, for whatever reason, Aura Forms only allows for 2 parties on each side, 2 sellers, 2 buyers, and that's not always the case. So there are things that you can do to work around. Always double check with your principal broker to make sure you're doing it within the way that your brokerage wants it done. But let's say Brandy and Brandy's husband were co-signing for their son for a house. I could put the son as one, and then I could put Brandy and her husband as, you know, Brandy and Mr. Brandy, and then Smith here. That will cause a little bit, you'll have to do some legwork on the DigiSign, DocuSign in, but then what that will do is it'll put one client on one line and it'll put the mom and dad who are co-signing on the second line. So you're not trying to like figure out where to like edge in a name there. And if you've never clicked on it before, I'm going to open an additional contact for this one. You'll see that there's a button right above the contact information that says this client is a company, trust, or entity. If you check that box, you'll notice that we go from first name, last name, email to organization name, representative's first name, representative's last name, email. So if Brandy was representing a trust, I could put the name of the trust here and then put representative is Brandy Smith. So on all of the buyer's line, it would have the trust lines, but when you get into DigiSign, it's supposed to put Brandy's information in there as the representative name. Let's see here, it doesn't look like there's any questions, so we'll keep moving. Under the property information, you can do 2 things. You can hand type the information in, or you can click import from MLS. I always just randomly grab one here. I mean, Brandy always wanted to live on Northeast Prescott, right, Brandy? So we're going to come down here. It's going to import all the data from RMLS. I love this way of doing it because 1, super fast, and it brings in the photo for you. It brings in a bunch of the information into the forms for you. But 2, because you got the information directly from MLS, you can be assured that it is deemed as accurate as possible and that you didn't make a typo or transpose a letter or anything like that, that it's going to be as accurate as possible. Down below that, how would you like to name the file? Again, no right or wrong way. It's how your brain works. By default, it gives you the choice of doing it by address or by primary client. But this, I think, having just one or the other can be kind of confusing because maybe I'm writing 5 offers for Brandy, so I don't want them all to just say Brandy Smith. But if I'm the listing agent, I don't want a bunch of files just labeled 817 Northeast Prescott either. So I might just take this and I might just put Brandy's name here. I'd be like, this is Brandy's file for Northeast Prescott Street. And then that way I can very clearly identify which file it is when I'm on my dashboard. And then down below that, once you've created templates, you'll see all of your templates down there. So I can say, hey, I want to use my buyer's 2025 template, and then I can hit create. It's going to open up my transaction file here. So this is where you're going to want to go in. Probably the first thing you want to get in the habit of doing is going over to that file's detail, coming down to contact, adding that additional contact as other, and adding in your transaction, your support transaction coordinators in here, and saving that so that they will be carbon copied on everything moving forward. Oops, let me cancel that. Let me remove the listing agent so I don't accidentally send her anything. Now, when this opens up, it's going to show you the forms that you have in here. They're already, because we used a template, they're already going to be the order I want them in. They're already going to have the data I want on them, and they're already going to have my personal information on them. From this space, I can add additional forms. So if I know that there's something about this house, maybe I need to add the wood burning stove addendum or something like that, I can add that here. Again, I can upload documents from my own computer. So this is another place you could do it. If you have some opt forms that are form fillable and you can fill them out to put all your client information and then upload it into the system, you can do that here as well. And you'll see you can add additional templates. So templates can be layered within a transaction. So if you create like a buyer, if you do everything kind of like each template kind of very systematically for whatever its own purpose is, I could take the buyer's template and then overlay like say a short sale template on top of it. So you can put multiple templates into one transaction file. When you come here, if you just click on a singular form, it will just it will just open that one form. But if you click select all and then click the fill and send sign, it will open up all 4 forms for me. That way I can either bounce back and forth over here between the forms, or I can scroll a continuous scroll from page to page to page. I don't have to go back and forth, kind of like the old zip forms way. Now you'll see here, I'm going to minimize this just a little bit. So you'll see here, it's already put in all of Brandy and Brandy's co-signers information, all of my information, my license number, anywhere that's supposed to be, it already put that data in there for me. All of my address, all of that. So again, that's all imported from my profile. Now, as far as these forms go, I am not a real estate lawyer. I am not a real estate agent, and I am not a principal broker. So I'm not going to tell you how to fill out these forms. I figure most of you have a pretty good handle on that. If you are newer to the business and don't have a great handle on that, definitely reach out to your principal broker or a mentor in your office who can help you with that. But for the purposes of this class, we're going to say that these are all filled out. As I go through, I've got everything filled out the way I want it to. I'm ready to send it to Brandy. I can come down here to the bottom and I can click prepare signature. Now it is going to, again, default to whatever you have in your preferences. If your default is DocuSign, it's going to default it to DocuSign and it'll go over to DocuSign. If your default is DigiSign, it will automatically open up in DigiSign. So it already brought in all my information here. Now, this is kind of like a little tip just from me to you. By default, it's going to name it with the name of the transaction file. Well, in a transaction, you're probably going to send multiple DigiSign or multiple packets to be digital sign. So I would change this name to like whatever the paperwork is. That way, when you have to go look at your envelopes later and find something, you'll be like, hey, that was the initial offer. That was the counter offer one. Nobody sees this but you, but it'll make it easier for you than having 9 envelopes that are labeled Brandy-Northeast Prescott. So I'm going to come through here. It automatically brings in Brandy, her co-signer, and myself. It knows that we all need to sign. So I can click next, and it's going to move me from Skyslope Forms over into the forms version of DigiSign. So I've got all my paperwork here. So this is the forms version of DigiSign. It looks fairly similar to the full version of DigiSign. It's just set up a little bit different. In the upper left-hand corner, I'll see all 3 people who need to sign. They're color-coded. So if you're used to DocuSign, that's very similar to that. I've got all my forms in here. And then down below, I have my recipients and my outgoing email address or my email message. Now, under this recipients, you'll notice that there are 3 dots here. I can click on the menu and I can say edit recipients. This is where I can add recipients or add people to be carbon copied on this as I need be. If you have already put in your transaction coordinator as an other in the main file, they would appear here as well. This is also where you can set signing orders. So this is kind of, for the most part, fairly straightforward. Most people just send the documents. They're like, I'm just going to send it to Brandy and her husband all at once. My rule for that for risk reduction is if both signers are doing the same thing, then both signers can sign at the same time. Meaning, if all they're doing is initialing, signing, and dating, they can get it at the same time. But if I have something on a piece of paperwork where I want Brandy to click a box and to accept or reject something, but I'm putting that in her hands, I want her to get the paperwork before her husband does, because otherwise he's going to get the paperwork blank and he could always come back later and say, that box wasn't checked when I signed the paperwork, and the history of the envelope would support that. So again, if they're doing the same thing, they can sign at the same time. If they're doing different things, they need to sign at different times. So right here, the default is who signs first, and it has all three of us in here. Underneath that, you'll notice it has a little thing that says add a signer group. So it says, okay, who signs second? And all I have to do is drag Mr. Brandy Smith down there so that now Brandy's going to sign first. And then by default, and again, you can do this any way you want, unless there's a reason as an agent you need to sign first. I always say have yourself sign last. That way you can verify the paperwork and make sure all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed, all the boxes that should be checked are checked before you send it on to your TC or to the co-op agent or something like that. So now very quickly, I've created a process. Brandy's going to sign. Once Brandy's completely, I have no idea what I just did there. Let's go here. Let's go back in there. Sorry about that. Let's put him back down there. All right. So I've got my signing group. Once Brandy's completely done signing and she's done everything she's supposed to do, the system will say Brandy's done, and then they'll automatically email it to Brandy's husband. Then Brandy's husband's going to open up the paperwork. He's going to see everywhere Brandy has signed, everywhere she's initialed, everywhere she's dated or checked a box, and then he will sign. Once he has done everything that is assigned to him, the system will know automatically, and then they will send it to me. I can review it and do all my signatures. If you have your transaction coordinator on here, as soon as I'm done signing, anybody who's set up to receive a copy will get a copy of the fully executed and signed document. Any questions on that so far? Now, in the beginning, I would say if you've never really played with signing orders, I would start basic, like separating out people based on what they need to do in the transaction. As you get more comfortable with it, you can start adding additional people in here. So you could add in the co-op agent. I could say, hey, when I'm done with this, I want my transaction coordinator to get a copy, but I also want it to automatically send to the listing agent because I've already reviewed it and signed it and know that it's correct. So you can actually start creating some more efficiencies there to have it start automatically sending to people once you've reviewed and signed it. Okay, I'm going to save this. Now we're going to get into the actual document itself. When you use DigiSign or DocuSign, any place a person is supposed to initial, sign, or date will automatically be filled in for you. When you use DigiSign only, the date box, if it requires a time, will automatically have date and time. If it doesn't require the time, it will only have the date. We got a question. If the same email is used for both parties, will it send to the same email a second time? Yes, it will. Pardon me. So again, this will autofill out any place that my clients are supposed or I'm supposed to sign or date. All of those will be pre-filled out for me. Again, they're all color coded so I can look at those. And then I'm going to bounce down here to this one for an example. So everything's in there. When you have a long document, like the residential sales agreement, that's like 15 pages now, you don't have to scroll from page to page. There is in the upper little left-hand corner above the paperwork here, you can say, I want to go down to page 13. That way you're not sitting there like scrolling forever and ever trying to find what you're looking for. I'm going to come down here. I know this is the buyer's side of the paperwork, but I'm going to use this section to show you some of these tags. The tags are pretty self-explanatory: signature, initials, full name. So whoever that's assigned to, if I've got it assigned to Brandy and I click signature, it's just going to drop a signature box for her right where I put that. I can move that around once I have it on there. I can delete it if I need to delete it. I can just click on it, click delete. Sorry, my system's being a little bit slow at the moment. And then you'll notice there's a box up here too with Brandy's name. If I accidentally assigned it to Brandy, but I meant to assign it to somebody else, I can come in and just change it very quickly from there. Okay, I don't know what my system is doing. Let's take that off. Same thing with initials. You just tap on it, tap wherever you want the initial to go. That's where it's going to go. Full name is just going to be, it's just going to put Brandy's name in there based on how I typed it in when I did the thing. Date is going to be just the date. Let's see if it'll work for me here. And then time is going to be date and time. So it'll have month, day, year, hour, minute, second. So it's going to be pretty long. Just be kind of aware of that. Now, probably the most important one up here for you is going to be these check boxes. Let me undo that so I can get rid of these. So the check boxes here, this is how you're going to add a spot for your clients to be able to mark boxes on the thing. If you've ever taken a DocuSign class from me, I always talk about don't use check boxes in DocuSign because they're not required. It skips over them. Clients never ever see them because they're just hitting next, next, next. So I always say use the radio boxes. There are no radio boxes in DigiSign, but you have flexibility with the check boxes. So I want Brandy to be able to select counter offer or reject, right? So I'm going to add a checkbox here. And it's going to give me a little, let's see if I can grab it here, move it up. It's going to give me a little button here. You can add additional ones. You can either hit the check sign or the plus sign there if you want to, or on this left-hand side, you could say, hey, I need 10 check boxes, right? And then click that and it's going to add 10 check boxes for you. Or I can say, nope, I really only need 2 check boxes, and I can go back down to 2 check boxes. Once you have your check boxes, they can be moved around, but you'll notice because I have 2 check boxes, they're kind of in this, oops, I didn't mean to add another one. Let me delete that one. You'll notice when I click on these, they're in kind of a rubber banded like dash and dot line thing. That means that they go together. So it knows, the system knows that they go together and they're part of a group. So I'm going to put the first dot there. I'm going to put the second dot here. And then this is the important part of this. Down below on the left-hand side, there is a section that says required checkboxes. And the default is select at least 1. Well, I don't want her to have the option to select both because really it's a this or that question. So I can say, I can change this to select exactly 1. And then when Brandy gets here in the paperwork, she'll have to choose one or the other to move on, but she can't skip it. She can't choose both and she can't choose none. It's going to force her to actually make a selection. Any questions on that? All right. Let's take out some of these. Let's see if they'll. There we go. Delete all those extra ones we don't need. Oops. Give me everything.
Dawn,
Yep. Yes.
I know it's not relevant on this, but when we're doing disclosures, I missed in our last platform being able to cut and paste buyer's initials and dates to put on each page. I heard that there's a way in Skyslope that we can cut and paste.
Okay, so that's a good question. So one, if you're going straight into DigiSign, it doesn't matter what form you select. If it's an Aura form, Organ form, or an RMLS form, it's automatically going to put those signatures or those, if you're initiating the forms, it's going to put those on there for you. But yes, you can cut and paste. If you bring something in to manually do, you can absolutely click on any one of the boxes, or you can rubber band them together. So if you want to say, I want to get both these signatures and both these date boxes. On the left-hand side, you'll notice there's a copy button here. And you can just hit copy. And then when you go to the next place, oops, let's see here. Let me go back. And you can also use keyboard shortcuts as well. So I'd be able to move that around as I need to. So you can absolutely copy and paste in here if you did not initiate the paperwork and just manually uploaded it. All right, so let's make sure there's no more questions. Okay, so I've got everything in here. Brandy's got all the stuff that she needs to do. When I'm ready to send it to my clients, I can just hit the send button. It is going to give me an email subject line and default verbiage in here. Well, I don't want this to be what Brandy and her husband see. I don't want her to get an email from me that just says next steps, right? So I'm gonna say offer on Prescott. That way they know, hey, that's the offer paperwork. They do put in like some default verbiage for you here, but I am a big fan. Create your own, what I like to call your cover your hiney verbiage, like your disclaimer that says, hey, here's the offer on Prescott that we discussed. Please review the paperwork carefully and call me if you see any errors or have any questions before signing. That way you've done your due diligence and you've told them, hey, Brandy, don't sign this document without reviewing it, right? Then you'll have legal proof that I told her that. If she chooses not to review it before she signs it, then you have already covered your bases by advising her to do so. Then I'm just going to say send for signatures. Those are going to go to my private email. It's going to say your envelope has been sent. You can sit, I'm done. And it's going to take you right back over into Skyslope Forms. And it's going to take you, instead of going to your dashboard, it's going to take you to the envelopes section right here. And you'll notice here, I have one envelope in here. And remember when I told you rename the envelopes for your own purposes, you'll see here, that's what I named it, initial offer. Otherwise, you're going to have like 10 or 15 envelopes here that just say Brandy-Prescott, Brandy-Prescott. It will have all the information here, date it was sent, status, action. Right now, this is just going to be left open because it's in an email I can't access here. But what I can do is I can come in later, I can resend them. So if Brandy's like, hey, I didn't get that, can you resend that? I can very quickly just come and hit resend. I can download this envelope. I can view the history. I can cancel it. If Brandy's like, hey, I printed those out and just signed them and dropped them off at your office, I can cancel it. But the most important thing in here, and I believe you get a copy at the end of the transaction, kind of like with DocuSign. But at the very end, when this envelope is completely done, come to the view history. It will let you download a history of the envelope. And basically what the history is, this one won't have very much on it, but it'll say when it was sent, who it was sent by, who it was sent to, and then it'll have the entire activity log of this is when I created it, this is when I sent it to Brandy, this is when Brandy signed it, date, time, this is when Brandy's husband signed it, date, time, it's when I signed it, this is when the carbon copies went out. Save these for your records. Download a copy of them. You are not required to put them in your transaction file in Skyslope, but oh, sorry, I have a puppy. I'm not opposed to doing that because if you do that, if anything happens, sorry, second, hush. If anything happens later on, you will have a documentation of like, no, I sent it to Brandy on this date and this is when she signed it. All of that information. So if anything legal happens later on, you're kind of covered. If you ever get out of the business by putting it in the Skyslope transaction file, that covers your brokerage because the brokerage could come back later and say, hey, no, I've got this whole transaction file and Dawn may not be in the business anymore, but this is what she did, when she did it, and how she did it. So that will keep you protected and it will keep the brokerage protected. Any questions on the envelope history? Okay, perfect.
Hey, Dawn, I do have a quick question. On the last screen, if I were to hit save and exit instead of send, I had this actually happen a couple of days ago. So I went ahead and I saved it. So I completed everything. I tagged all of the documents. And then I found out that my client's legal name was not what was on the document. I couldn't find a way to change his name to be reflected on all the forms. So I had to basically go back and start everything over and re-tag all the documents. Is there a way that you know that's a workaround for that?
Well, let me back this up, Garrett, just to make sure. Had you
Sure.
already sent it through DigiSign?
I went all the way to the end as far as that, like I tagged everything. Everything was all completed.
Yeah.
But I didn't send it.
The only thing I could probably think of in that one is you could come in and you could correct an envelope if it hasn't been signed yet. But that data that was sent over was based off of what you put in the initial transaction file. But
Right.
I would think that you would be able to come over here and edit the recipient right here where I could come in and go, oh, Brandy really wants her middle initial to be in there. Oh, let's see if I can get my mouse to work here. Brandy, I don't know if that's your middle initial, but it is now. But that would be one way, Garrett, that I think you could do it, is just come to that edit recipient, edit the specific recipient, and then change the name there, which should change it for the DigiSign part, but it's not, but it's still going to say on all the lines, it's going to say whatever you put in the file. So if you put in like, you know, if you thought my name was D and you put like D Reed on everything, and then you're like, oh, she needs to sign Dawn Reed. On the actual lines, it'll still say Brandy Smith, not Brandy M. Smith. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. So then in that case, then I would need to then, redo all of those. Is that correct?
Yeah, you just basically have to go back to forms. We'll say leave here. You have to go back to forms, open up that file for Brandy. Let's see here. Let's open this up. And then come into that file details, like where you were shown earlier for adding your contact people. And then here you could come in, edit that, and then it will change it on all the lines. But yes, you at that point, if you wanted it to reflect on all the lines, you'd have to redo all the tagging, unfortunately.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much.
You are very, very welcome. All right, so there's just one last thing I want to show you guys. If there's no more questions on templates or creating transaction files or DigiSigning. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to show you is another piece of the Skyslope platform that you have access to. It is called Breeze, and if you have not used this yet, hopefully this will blow your mind. If you've already used it, your mind's already been blown. So again, I've been doing this for over 20 years, so it takes a lot for me to step back and go, oh my gosh, that's super cool. I can't wait to show that to agents, right? What Breeze is Breeze is a subsection for disclosures only. So it doesn't have all the order forms. It doesn't have all the organ forms. It's literally only disclosures. The reason I love this is because we all know in this business, there is no more dreaded form than the seller's property disclosure form, right? Like before Zip Forms made it a form fillable form, it was like, oh my gosh, I have to take it. Then you had to have the ruler to make sure you sign on the lines all correctly. So here, what I can do is I can come into Breeze. The only visual difference of Breeze compared to the rest of them is that your name, your settings, and you're getting back to the other apps instead of being in the upper corner is over here on the left-hand side. But I'm going to start a new disclosure. There's going to be two ways I can do it. I can create a brand new file if I haven't done anything yet, or if I already have a transaction file within the system. I know Brandy's file was set up as a buyer, but we're just going to do this anyway. So I'm going to say I already have a file, Brandy on Northeast Prescott. I'm going to click next. And then it's going to give you a list of all the disclosures that are available to you in here. So if I was going to send the seller's property disclosure and the lead-based paint disclosure, I could choose those two. Then I'm going to come through and it's like, who do I want to send this to? And I want to send this to Brandy. I can add another person, but like anything else, only one of them really gets to fill it out. So that's just something to keep in mind. So you'll want to know who to send these to, like who's the button pusher in each transaction. So it's going to show the email, the address. I can change this message if I want to. It's got a little default blurb in there for me. I can click next. And then all I have to do is verify the information and hit send. Now, for those of you who have never used this before, this is super cool because what it does is it sends your client an email that says, hey, here's some disclosures for you. And it looks like it comes from me. So it doesn't look like it's coming from Skyslope or anything. It looks like it's coming directly from me. They can open up the disclosures. They fill out a little agreement to do them online. And then it breaks the disclosures down question by question. So instead of just being one big form with 80 questions with 150 checkboxes, it breaks it down question by question. If any of you have ever used like TurboTax or SurveyMonkey or something like that, it's a lot like that, where it asks you a question, you put in your answer, and based on what you say, moves you to the next question. So particular for the seller's property disclosure, the first question is, do you have the rights to sell this property? Yes or no? If I click yes, it moves me on to the next question. If there are certain things that they have to add on there, like for instance, when I sold my house 2 years ago, it asked me, was I aware of lead-based paint on my house? And I had to answer yes, because I was, so I had to legally disclose that. And then it gave me a little pop-up box and it said, please explain. And I got to type in the box that I had the windows replaced in 2014 and they did a sampling at that time. That's when I discovered it. Shortly after, I had the house repainted to make sure that it was all sealed in and safe. What it does is if your client is filling out a disclosure and they have to put an explanation in like that, it automatically creates an addendum, puts the line number of the question and puts that explanation there and adds it automatically to the back of the seller's property disclosure. The great thing for you is it makes it super, super simple for your clients, one question at a time, easy to understand. And then on your side, it makes it really easy because you can kind of track where they are in the process. Now, the only thing about using Breeze that is a little bit, I think, kind of complicated is a two-step process. When I send Brandy these, she's going to fill these out. They're going to come back to me for review. Then I can send them to her for signature. There'll be a new button here that says send for signature. So she can send those, I can send those out for signature, but she doesn't get to sign them at the time she fills them up. When you come back in, all of your transactions will be shown here, but because this was already tied to a file in Forms, all of those transactions will go back. Oh, let me go back to the Forms. Sorry, she's barking at the vacuum cleaner. Daisy, no. See her. When I come back into Brandy's file, if Brandy had already filled these out, I could come back into signed documents and all her signed documents will be there. But in the forms section here, there will be a second section and it'll show Breeze form. So it'll say signed documents signed by Breeze, and it'll be all in there so that you can quickly upload those into your transaction file. Any questions on that? All right, well, that's basically what I've got for you guys. Again, like Brandy said, if you come up with questions later or there's stuff you want to dive in a little deeper in or have more questions on, don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you for having me.
You guys have a wonderful day.
Appreciate it so much.